Hi, I'm David Popp, and welcome to yet another installment of our Virginian Video Journal. Well, we've made quite a bit of progress since the last time we checked in on the layout, so we'll walk around in a bit here and show you some of the things going on. But first of all, at this stage in our Virginian project, I'm working on laying track. I've got almost all of my cork roadbed down now. One of the last things that we finished was getting the end-scale cork roadbed down into the yard area here. I'm in the process now of fitting all the bits and pieces together. And one thing I wanted to point out is that on a layout like this, we've used a whole mishmash of different track. I've got a bunch of Atlas track on here. I've got some Pico track on here. I've even got a Walther's turnout that happened to fit the spot that I needed. So there's a big collection of different things going on. As a tip, one of the things that I've discovered over the years of building these smaller size project railroads is that when you deal with tight radius curves, now things that we're talking like 18 inches or in our case 22 inches here on our broader outer curves, I found that using set track actually helps quite a bit. I'm using Atlas Code 83, 18-inch and 22-inch radius curves on this particular layout. And what we're doing is we're actually soldering the sections together. But what you wind up with is, on these tight turns in particular, you wind up a very nice smooth arc because these rails have been curved. They're rigid rails that have already been curved into the set arc so that you know everything's going to fit together. When you use flex track on really tight curves, a lot of times you have trouble with kinks. You also have trouble with getting the curve to actually lay smoothly enough as you go. And so working with a combination of some set track and some flex track for the bigger areas of the layout seems to really pay off. So let's walk around. We'll take a look at some of the things that we've done on the layout at this point, and then I'm going to get back to laying track, and you can tune in next time to see what's happening on the Virginian. One of the other projects we've been working on finishing before we can lay the track, obviously, is to get all of the cork down. Here's the cork on the top of the branch. Now the top of the branch is going to connect to our Turtle Creek extension layout, which was featured a number of years ago. But we figured since we've already got one sort of Virginian type mine set up that we might as well plug it into the layout to make the layout bigger. Key piece that's missing on the layout at the moment is the girder viaduct that will actually run through this little gap in the benchwork here, and unfortunately that's been back ordered, and it's been back ordered for several weeks now, so I may have to come up with an alternate plan to keep going. But you can see that the cork has stopped here simply because of the fact I don't have any idea of how I'm going to connect all that together yet, and I didn't want to make any commitments until we got that set up. Speaking of making commitments when you're building a model railroad, actually it's a good idea to be moderately flexible when you're transferring the plan that you've drawn to an actual layout. Case in point is this set of turnouts I have here down in the corner where our main line and our branch line all come together as to form a passing siding in front of our coal marshalling yard here. And this had been kind of a spot that had vexed me for a while. I'd originally drawn it with a number 7 curve turnout to come in, and then it would made into just a Pico number 5. But when I laid that out, I didn't like the arrangement, and so finally Jim Hediger came up with an idea that he's used on his Ohio Southern layout, and that is to take 2 of the set track Pico curved turnouts. Now these guys have tight little radiuses. It's got a 19-inch on the outside and a 17.5-inch on the inside. But when you pair them up like this in this configuration, and I've got a little 1 1/4-inch Atlas snap track splicer in between, when you pair them up like this, you get a very nice flowing curve that comes in from our main line into the siding, from the main line continuing on to the main line, and then also coming the other way out of the yard, up the branch, or back to the main. And so thanks to Jim Hediger for solving this little puzzle. You can see from the close-up shots here that because these set track pieces are code 100 and Pico doesn't make this particular piece of track in code 83, which is what we've used on the rest of the railroad, well, we had to do a solder job basically where the rail joiner is. So we soldered the rail joiner into the code 100 track, and then on top of the rail joiner we soldered on the piece of code 83. Just tinned both pieces first, put them together, lined them up, and then hit them with a soldering iron in order to maintain the heat on it, and away it goes. So turned out nice and slick, and by the time we paint and ballast this whole section, put the replacement ties into the gaps, you'll be hard-pressed to discover that we've got 2 different sizes of rail used here, but should work out pretty slick. In laying the track, one of the things I need to do before I can actually put the track down is I'm drilling holes for switch motors. Now on the layout we plan to use these Caboose Industry ground throws on a lot of it, but There may come a time where we decide we want to add switch motors and a control panel, especially for the yard later, and it's difficult to install the rods for the switch motors if you don't already have the holes cut through the layout surface and then the switches are laid on top of it. So let me show you how this works. First of all, I mark on either side of the throw bar on the turnout its location, and then I mark the center lines on the opposite sides. Then what I do is I connect these lines. In this case I'm just using a scrap piece of cork so that I can find center. Alright, so there's my center point. Next thing I do is I cut a slot in the cork, a hobby knife. Next we'll take the drill and we'll drill the first hole in the center of the cross. Like that. Then we'll drill a hole on either side of it. The thing you want to avoid here is picking up too much of the cork, because if the sawdust gets underneath it, it can, just like that, it can cause a bubble, and then your turnout won't lay straight. All right, I've got my 3 holes there, and now I'm going to connect them simply by moving the drill back and forth. There. All right, I'm going to continue drilling holes for turnouts here so I can keep on laying track, but you can learn more about how we laid the track on our Virginian Project Railroad in the February 2012 issue of Model Railroader. And as always, thank you for watching.